great to meet with young people. If there's any hope for the country, it's going to be with you. If you're very happy with what you're having, and you're satisfied with the politics of the day, then I'm sure you wouldn't even be here. You wouldn't be interested in politics, and you certainly wouldn't come and visit with a candidate that has different views. Different views because they're not the common views. They're not unusual views. They happen to be the views of the Founding Fathers. They happen to be the traditional American views, but they just don't happen to be the conventional views of the current day. We have been taught now for several decades that the government's purpose is to regulate and run the economy, to tell people how to live and tell all other countries how to live as well.
No, there's something wrong with the system. We do need a few more people of courage in the U.S. Congress. But who should we blame? The U.S. Congress? Partially. Who else should we blame? You and I, because we don't do enough to make sure the right people are over there and that we vote for the right people for the presidency and the Congress as well.
This is not the kind of government that was designed by our founders of the country. It's not what was written in the Constitution. We've only had an income tax since 1913. But if you want a welfare state, and if you want to police the world and pay for the defense of Japan and Germany, send foreign aid to the Soviet Union, you not only need the income tax, you need the Federal Reserve to print up the money when the deficit is accumulated. So we think the government should be much smaller. That's why we talk to a lot of young people, because they're the ones who are paying these bills. They're the ones who are inheriting this debt. So it's most likely the young people who will move into this next generation in government will say, look, we can't afford it. We're broke. We better do something else. But we have a growing number of people in this country who are starting to realize that even if they might not agree with us on our moral principles and the Constitution, they might agree that economic law says we can't afford it any longer.
The subject today is whether or not we should have a gold standard or whether we should follow the standard that we are using today, and that is the discretionary paper standard. And obviously I support the idea that it would be wiser to have a gold standard rather than a paper standard. And I think that unfortunately for those who believe in the paper standard have one little problem. They have to defend what we have today.
Millions of tax dollars are spent on this type of computer surveillance, a disgusting procedure for a professed free society. The irony is that it's done by an administration that brags about its limited government philosophy, and the little condemnation we hear comes from those who would involve government in every jot and tittle of our economic lives. Why is it that it's so difficult to defend freedom consistently across the board?
I love dealing in the ideas. I love dealing with economic activities and subjects, and I really haven't missed anything because I've been able to participate in all these things by helping through education and other things. But to actually miss it, to miss what they think is glamorous about Washington, no, absolutely not. The kind of government we get is not an accident. It reflects the demands and desires of the people, and as long as the people believe it's in their best interest to have big government and big government programs, you're going to have big government and you're going to have this waste. But what I witness is something changing now. I sense this from my patients, I sense this from the people I meet, that they're starting to realize the government can't afford it anymore. At the same time, it's not working very well. You know, some of the things I stood for in the 1970s weren't very popular, but today it almost seems like they're mainstream. You can't expect the people to support cuts in the social programs if the Congress is not willing to cut the spending on themselves. So I thought pay raises were not appropriate. Matter of fact, I thought the pension fund was so outrageous I would not take the pension fund. I'm for a very strong national defense. That's the #1 purpose of the U.S. government, is to provide for a strong national defense. But I'm not for using American taxpayers' dollars to spend defending other nations or paying for the defense of other countries. And I'm not for putting our troops under the UN or any other international command.
I don't see that we have the authority to all of a sudden impose
our system of justice across the entire world. I do not think it's effective. I think it drums up more anti-American hostility more than it achieves justice.
It has nothing to do with national security. Matter of fact, our national security is more jeopardized by permitting this to happen because we're liable to start a war. We're liable to have our military men killed. We're liable to have more attacks on us by terrorists.
Our foolish policy in Iraq invites terrorist attacks against U.S. territory and incites the Islamic fundamentalists against us. Our foreign policy of military interventionism has brought us death and destruction to many foreign lands and loss of life for many Americans. From Korea and Vietnam to Serbia, Iran, Iraq, and now Afghanistan, we have ventured far from our shores in search of wars to fight. There is no evidence that this policy serves the interests of world peace. It certainly increases the danger to all Americans as we become the #1 target of terrorists. Our arrogant policy and attitude of superiority will continue to elicit a smoldering hatred toward us, and out of sheer frustration will motivate even more terrorist attacks against us. The Federal Reserve credit created during the last 8 months has not stimulated economic growth in technology or the industrial section, but a lot of it ended up in the expanding real estate bubble, churned by the $3.2 trillion of debt maintained by the GSEs.
The presidential race continues to grow. Now, this past weekend, Republican Congressman Ron Paul of Texas announced that he is forming a presidential exploratory committee, and Congressman Paul hopes his strong opposition to illegal immigration and the war in Iraq will set him apart from other Republican candidates. You ran for president in 1988 on the Libertarian line, and you now say there are two parties in Congress right now, big government conservatives and big government liberals, and the only difference is what they want to spend money on. Now, are you running because you think that there are, of the declared candidates, the true conservatives are not coming out of this pack?
Well, certainly the Republican leadership in the last 6, 8, even 10 years, and especially in these last 6 years, we have been the big party, a big spender party. We have spent more money on subsidies than ever before. We've doubled the size of the Department of Education. We brought in one of the biggest new entitlement programs, the prescription drug programs, big, huge highway expenditures. So I would say that in some ways, yes, they have some differences, but in other ways, I think Republicans have grown to act just like Democrats. In the foreign policy, certainly we can't afford $700 billion in protecting an empire. That has to come to an end, because the truth is we're flat out broke and we have to borrow every single penny to fight that war from the Chinese.
Yeah.
Congressman Paul, do you support a government program to stimulate the economy?
Well, government program is too vague. What kind of a government program? If it's appropriating money and trying to stimulate that way and spend more money, no, that would be the wrong thing to do. But a government program of a reduced tax burden, yes, that would be. But you have to understand that overstimulation in an economy by artificially low interest rates by the Federal Reserve is the source of the recession. The recession has been predictable. We just don't know exactly when it'll come. But if you do the wrong thing, it's going to last for a long time.
Congressman Paul, I believe you are the only man on the stage who opposes the war in Iraq, who would bring the troops home as quickly as almost immediately, sir. Are you out of step with your party? Is your party out of step with the rest of the world? If either of those is the case, why are you seeking its nomination?
Well, I think the party has lost its way because the conservative wing of the Republican Party always advocated a non-interventionist foreign policy. Senator Robert Taft didn't even want to be in NATO. George Bush won the election in year 2000 campaigning on a humble foreign policy, no nation building, no policing of the world. Republicans were elected to end the Korean War. The Republicans were elected to end the Vietnam War. There's a strong tradition of being anti-war in the Republican Party. It is the constitutional position. It is the advice of the founders to follow a non-interventionist foreign policy. Stay out of entangling alliances. Be friends with countries. Negotiate and talk with them and trade with them. Just think of the tremendous improvement relationships with Vietnam. We lost 60,000 men. We came home in defeat. Now we go over there and invest in Vietnam. So there's a lot of merit to the advice of the founders and following the Constitution. And my argument is that we shouldn't go to war so carelessly. When we do, the wars don't end.
Congressman, you don't think that changed with the 9/11 attack, sir?
What changed?
The non-interventionist policies.
No, non-intervention was a major contributing factor. Have you ever read about the reasons they attacked us? They attack us because we've been over there. We've been bombing Iraq for 10 years. We've been in the Middle East. I think Reagan was right. We don't understand the irrationality of Middle Eastern politics. So right now we're building an embassy in Iraq that's bigger than the Vatican. We're building 14 permanent bases. What would we say here if China was doing this in our country or in the Gulf of Mexico? We would be objecting. We need to look at what we do from the perspective of what would happen if somebody else did it to us.
Are you suggesting we invited the 9/11 attack, sir?
I'm suggesting that we listen to the people who attacked us and the reason they did it. And they are delighted that we're over there because Osama bin Laden has said, I am glad you're over on our sand because we can target you so much easier. They've already now, since that time, have killed 3,400 of our men, and I don't think it was necessary.
Wendell, may I make a comment on that? That's really an extraordinary statement. It's an extraordinary statement as someone who lived through the attack of September 11, that we invited the attack because we were attacking Iraq. I don't think I've ever heard that before, and I've heard some pretty absurd explanations for September 11. I would ask the congressman to withdraw that comment and tell us that he didn't really mean that.
Congressman?
I believe very sincerely that the CIA is correct when they teach and talk about blowback. When we went into Iran in 1953 and installed the Shah, yes, there was blowback. The reaction to that was the taking of our hostages, and that persists. And if we ignore that at our own risk. That if we think that we can do what we want around the world and not incite hatred, then we have a problem. They don't come here to attack us because we're rich and we're free. They come and they attack us because we're over there. I mean, what would we think if if other foreign countries were doing that to us?
In mid-January, after hearing Dr. Paul talk about what he wanted to do, how he was going to run, and the issues that he was going to run on, it was that weekend that I set up the Daily Paul.
It's a job, and you set out to do a job, and you do the job. You know, live free or die, or die trying.
That'll be nice when we're walking down the road. So hopefully we draw a lot of attention, talk to a lot of people, have some fun.
Through emails, found out about the walk, and was like, you know, I have to do this. I care about my country, and just concerned about the way and the direction it's going.
A constitutional republic has a lot more responsibility. Each individual, you know, they have to be interactive in government. They can't just like sit still and you know, and hopefully things will change. You know, you got to be proactive.
Ron Paul raised big bucks and some major eyebrows with a very successful one-day internet fundraising drive. Amazing numbers. The impressive numbers, in fact, attracting new attention to a candidate many had simply assumed was an extreme long shot.
This revolution. Let's hear Ron Paul, Ron Paul, Ron Paul, Ron Paul, Ron Paul, Ron Paul.
It's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing. This is very amazing. Amazing. It's amazing because, believe it or not, I still think of myself as a country doctor that has gone to Congress, and I'm a quiet little congressman from Texas. But there's an urgency in what we do because we are carrying the banner. And we must act because we, as a group, now have a greater moral responsibility to act than those who live in ignorance. Once you become knowledgeable, you have an obligation to do something about it. You know, the one thing that I have said is that the revolution is a lot more than about me. There is no doubt about it. This revolution will continue. The conditions are such that there is room now for the defense of liberty. And people know that the system we have is not working. It's not working economically. It's not working monetarily. Our foreign policy is not working. And therefore, they're looking for answers. They will not welcome us with open arms. We've found that out. But there is a vacuum out there. And the vacuum is not in one political party. It is pervasive. It's throughout the country. It is throughout the political system. But our views are just as pervasive. Ideas spread. They can't stop them. An idea whose time has come cannot be stopped by any army or any government.
If I was going to say something to the Grassroots, it would be thanks for the experience. I've learned so much in the last year and a half. I knew nothing 2 years ago compared to what I know now.
I have no doubt that what was sparked by Ron Paul is not finished. It's not consummated. It's ongoing.
We want an America full of principled people. Not people who say one thing and do something else. Say anything to get elected. But who say what they mean what they say, and they live their lives by those principles.
It's great that I am able to announce in this state, a very special state, because there is so high respect for the spirit of liberty here. So I am very, very pleased that I am once again able to say that I am a candidate for the presidency in the Republican Party primary.
Are you suggesting that heroin and prostitution are an exercise of liberty?
Well, you know, I probably never used those words. You put those words someplace. But yes, in essence, if I leave it to the states, it's going to be up to the states. Up until this past century, you know, for over 100 years they were legal. What you're inferring is, you know what? If we legalized heroin tomorrow, everybody's going to use heroin. How many people here would use heroin if it was legal? I bet nobody would put the hand, oh yeah, I need the government to take care of me. I don't want to use heroin, so I need these laws. I think people who don't serve when they could and they get 3 or 4 or even 5 deferments they have no right to send our kids off to war and not be even against the wars that we have. I'm trying to stop the wars, but at least, you know, I went when they called me up.
George, this is an unusual topic that you're raising. The states have a right to ban contraception. Asking, could it constitutionally be done? We can ask our constitutionalist here.
What are your plans now? I mean, it seems clear to me, and you can tell me I'm wrong, but it seems clear to me that there's no way you're going to get the nomination now. Do you intend to continue hanging around?
Obviously, yes. You know, the conventional wisdom is there's no guarantee. It knows. You were talking earlier on about Romney being the candidate, but that's the conventional wisdom, and I would admit that. But no, the votes haven't been counted. There's quite a few states right now. There are 6 or 7 states that we're doing quite well through the delegate process. So we don't even know who's getting what so far, and who knows what will happen on the first vote at the convention. So I would say that it's very encouraging, because I am talking to a whole generation which is expanding, you know, as far as age goes. But when I can get 5,200 people out on a college campus is wildly enthusiastic to hear the message of liberty and freedom and less wars and curtailing the Federal Reserve, there's no way I'm going to quit speaking out on this. Now, I called Governor Romney a short while ago before he gave his talk and congratulate him, because he certainly had a clear-cut victory, but we're nibbling at his heels. But there was another victory tonight. He had a victory, but we have had a victory for the cause of liberty tonight.
There is no doubt that this whole effort that we are involved in will not go unnoticed. Let me tell you. I think the intellectual revolution that's going on now to restore liberty in this country is well on its way. There's no way they're going to stop the momentum that we have started. And that is the victory that you have brought about, because you have been the ones that have done the work. There's a lot of people here, but the ones across the country, it's the donors and the excitement on the campuses. It's just unbelievable. We don't always get the coverage or the interest shown on what is going on, because if they did, they wouldn't be ignoring so much of what we're doing. But you know, I find it sort of fascinating when they finally get around, and this is different people, it could be in the media, it could be our opponents or whatever, but I sort of have to chuckle when they describe you and me as being dangerous. That's one thing, they are telling the truth, because we are dangerous to the status quo of this country. Remain a danger to the Federal Reserve System as well. Yes. And the Fed, right, and the Fed.
Yeah. As presumptive Republican presidential nominee Mitt Romney transitions into the general election, Texas Congressman Ron Paul says the GOP race is not over yet. The man with the growing fan base also has a growing roster of delegates.